Hi, my name is Michael Silva, and this is my 2013 race bike. Today I'm going to be getting the engine out of the bike and showing you what it is to manually take apart the whole bike itself, take the seat off, the gas tank off, suspensions off, and get the engine out in one piece. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to be taking the seat off and the tank off, and the tools we need to do that are 8mm socket with preferably an impact to speed up the process of undoing the bolt, and second, some pliers. The pliers are going to be used to be able to take off the gas line from the gas tank as it's clipped on with a very special clip to hold the gas line in place. So now I'm going to show you how we do this. First, take the drill, make sure it's unscrewing, get underneath here, make sure you're placed properly, and go. Take the bolt out, place it safely in your bolt magnetic holder. Seat's now off. Simple as that. Now, next part we're going to need to do is get the tank off. This requires another 8mm socket, preferably a long one, or else you won't be able to make it to the bolt. Now, once that's out, take it out, put it with your other bolts. Now we got two more bolts up in the front. This is holding the plastics in place onto the radiator. There's one. There's two. And now to undo the gas line. Make sure the gas valve is off so no gas can come through while you're doing this. Now gently pull until you can get it unstuck. Right, now we're going to take the gas tank off, lightly lift it up, make sure everything's in place properly, unclipped on both sides, and easy as 1, 2, 3. Set this aside. Alright, so now to be able to access the engine, we need to remove some preliminary parts, and starting off with that is the header pipe and the tailpipe. Now, to take this off, we're going to need the 8mm socket again, and the spring tool to take off the springs at the head of the pipe. I'll start with the tailpipe. Tailpipe is fairly easy. It's two simple bolts. Make sure not to lose any of the washers. Put that down, and you simply slide it out of place. Gently wiggle it until it comes out. And it's off. Set that aside. Now, we're going to move to the head of the pipe. Now the head of the pipe is attached to the frame, so you first got to take out the 8mm bolts. There's one. Second one. Now, we're going to use the spring tool. The spring tool is used to take the springs off that are attached to the head of the engine from the pipe. At times this can be very difficult, so you must use all force to pull on the springs and pull them back and out. Now these are two fairly easy springs to take out. Now the front pipe will come up really easily. Alright, now the next part is we're going to remove the coolant from the engine in order to be able to take the engine out. So first we need to use the 8mm socket again, but with a slightly easier tool to use. It's a YT bar, so that because the bolt is a little more sensitive, so we don't want to strip it while it's pulling it out or doing anything wrong with it. So we're going to need a container to put the coolant in, and make sure the container is clean so you can put it back in. Once we're done with it, you can reuse it again. So now, as we remove the coolant, the bolt, it's going to leak a little bit. So you're going to have the container ready to be able to catch anything that falls out at first. Now we can do it by hand. So, as it starts to leak, you catch every single little drop with the, whatever you desire to use. I'm using a 2-liter bottle. So, came out much faster than we expected this time, so made a little bit of mess. However, it's not too bad. It's easy to pick up, and coolant can be easily reused and replaced. So now, once it's all out, we're going to be able to remove the top, and usually what this does is it allows us to let the Prestone or coolant flow out quicker. And we seem to have gotten it all out. Alright, so now that I've put the 10mm bolt back in for the Prestone, we're now going to go on and take out the spring that holds the rear brake and the rear brake itself to be able to remove the engine and make more space. So now, I already went out ahead and loosened this up for me because it was pretty hard to do. And as soon as I get this bolt off, I'm going to take the spring off and everything will come apart. Fairly easy process. And they put in the assembly process of the bike, they put Loctite on the nuts to make sure that it holds the bolts together properly so nothing falls apart while riding due to the vibrations of the bike itself. Now, this bolt will be easy to take out. Now, once it's loose enough, you can take it out by hand. Wiggle the paddle a little to help you. And now this is the spring. This is what kept the tension on the rear brake while it was still in place. Now next we're going to move to the carburetor and remove the Alright, so here's the carburetor. And as you see, it's kind of in a tight spot. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the subframe, lift it up a little. I pre-pass this so I can hold the subframe up, put it out of the way later, and it'll give us access to easier removal of suspension, easier removal of engine and the carburetor altogether. So now I'm going to remove the subframe. To get to the bolt, I must remove that. You don't have to remove the top bolt all the way. So now you can go over to this side, take the bottom one out again. Fairly easy to remove. There. Slack the top bolt a little. Remove the tool, and then lift the subframe up. Tighten this over here. So now that should hold up fairly easy. Now, the ring that just fell was the ring that I pre-slacked, holding the carburetor onto the rubber, the back rubber here, that holds it into the airbox. Take this ring out. Once that ring's out, jiggle the carburetor out over here. Turn it a little. Then once that's out, I'm going to bring up and out the hoses, Send the carburetor out to the other side. Bring it up. And place it down here for now. And that's how you take the carburetor. Alright, so next thing to do, carburetor's off, we must protect the engine. So what we do is we take some Scott towels, and we block the main entrance to the engine from where the carburetor was. Squeeze them in real tight, make sure no dirt, no dust, no particles can fall in. That can damage the engine once put back together. This is crucial to saving the engine if something does happen. So once that's done, now take the top motor mounts off. I'm going to take this one out right here. You need two 13 millimeters. One ratchet on one side. And you could use the impact on the other. Once that bolts out, you can take it out. And I've already pre-slacked the other ones, so they'll come out really easily. And that's how you can remove the motor mounts. Now you can take this main piece out. This would hold the engine in place to the top of the frame. Now we're going to remove the suspension. This is going to give us a place to work. Once the suspension's out, we can finally take the engine out. So now we're going to remove the bolts. So now we got to lift up the rear just to give it a little bit of loose to be able to take the bolt out. Put this back in your hand. Now we're going to remove the bottom part of the suspension. Now the bottom bolt will come out easily. Now getting back to the engine. We're going to remove the hoses that bring the coolant from the radiator to the engine. Now these are simple. You just simply slack the 6 millimeters right here off the hose. It'll come right off. And then you got to pry the hose off. Now at times you got to use a screwdriver to be able to pull it off. See, like that. There you go. There's always going to be a little bit of coolant left inside. Take this one off here. Should be fairly easy now. And this one's off as well. Put the hoses in a safe place. Pull it off from the other side. Put this one down as well. Go to the other side. Take the other one right off. And then that's it for the hose. Now, first thing we're going to do next is we're going to have to be taking out the clutch sleeve. So first thing we want to do is to protect it, we're going to have to pull in the clutch and tie it in place to make sure that no mishaps happen while removing the clutch sleeve. So then use the tie wraps to hold it in place. Once tie wraps are on, make sure it's all tight. And once that's done, you leave it there. So now that that's done, we can now remove the clutch sleeve from it. So, simple, 8 millimeter bolts, slack all 3 of them. Take one out.
10 key.
Take the next one out. And now the third one, we'll place it down here. Now, a 10 millimeter key is required to be able to remove the chain guard. So what we do is, we use a 10 millimeter key, we slack the rear bolt on the chain guard, and with the 8 millimeter bolt out, the chain guard will pull right back off. And now, seeing as we're taking out the whole engine, we're going to want to take out the 10 millimeter bolt. Chain guard comes right off with the bolt. Put that aside. Gently pull out the clutch sleeve. Move it out of place. Place it up here on the frame for now. Now, seeing as we're going to be removing the electrical from the engine, we're going to want to take all the tire wraps and cut them to dismantle the electric wiring from the frame. So there's one tire out. There's another one. Here's the third one. And last, we've got this plastic and rubber elastic holding all the wires up in place. So you just simply remove it, place it down the other side, leave it there. Now all the wiring is loose. We're going to remove this electrical piece. You're going to want to push up here and lift it out gently. Make sure not to break anything. Now that that's done, we've got more electrical wiring, and we're going to be able to do it right now very easily. So you simply pull it apart, and that'll come out very easy. Now all the electrical wiring is dismantled from the engine. We've got one last piece to take out. We're going to have to take the spark plug cap off very easily. Just pull up, comes right out, put that to the side. Now everything's off the engine. We're just short of the final steps that we're going to need to be able to take the engine out of the frame. Now I'm going to go to the other side of the engine, and I'm going to take the kickstart out. Because the less stuff you have on the engine, the easier it is for you to be able to take the engine out of the frame. So, fairly easy. You just unscrew the bolt, T45 torque. Take it out, place it down, and you wiggle it out of place, and it's up. Place that back down there. And you come back around to the other side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the clip off the chain, and this is a trick my dad showed me. Use big pliers. You grab onto the end of the pin that goes from one side to the other in the chain, in the links in the chain. Hold on to it, and then you push the clip out of place. Now that it's out of place, simply pull it out. You wiggle the chain off, and now the chain's off. Put the pins down in a safe place. Get the chain off. Fairly easy. Now the chain's all greased up and everything, so it's gonna give me a hard time. So now, next tools you're going to need are a 19mm T-bar, 13mm T-bar, and a pry bar. So now, we're going to use the 19mm T-bar to unscrew the big bolt that goes straight through the swing arm, the frame, and the engine. Now, once the end of the bolt's off, you'll see that the shaft is still sticking out a little. We'll need to hit that through very gently. Now switch tools because the other one was a little bit too big to be able to push the shaft out to all the way. So gently go. Just enough so you can get. Use the power tool. That's the T-bar there, so it'll hold the engine in place whilst I take the two other 13mm bolts out of the engine. There's the first one. And now, to get to the second one, might need to pry it just a little bit, but be careful not to scratch the frame while doing so. Alright, now that I was able to pry it out of place, second bolt's out. Now, we can go around to the other side. Alright, now on this side, you have to jiggle the swing arm a little bit and pull the bolt out through the swing arm, which held the engine and the swing arm in place all together. And then what you do is you leave the T-bar that you use to push out the shaft in place so that the swing arm doesn't fall, or else nothing will be. So we went ahead and pulled the swing arm bolt out from the other side, and now that everything is finally off, we can now take the engine out of the frame. Now you got to make sure you have a safe place to put the engine, and we have a bin. Gently place it in the bin. Make sure everything's in order, and that's how you take the engine out of a KTM 2013 two-stroke. Alright, so now the last thing we have to do to get my race bike ready for the race season is take the front suspensions out, as they too are going to need to be modified by Evo suspensions as well as Evo engines, which is where we're sending the engine and the suspensions all together to at the same time. So first things first, we're going to have to slack the front bolts, holding the bottom of the suspension in, tightening the shaft in through the front wheel. So now once that's done, we're going to have to take the bolts out that hold the front brake in place at the bottom. So once those two are out, put them out here. And you take the front brake caliper off, put that aside. Now you're going to have to slack the shaft that goes from one side of the wheel through the hub to the other. So now you slack that, you loosen it, and once it's out a little, you lightly tap it to the other side, unscrew it a little more. Now that falls out. If need be, you can use a T-bar just to slightly push the shaft out to the other side. Once the shaft's far enough out for you to pull on it, pull it out. Put that down, and off comes the front wheel. Alright, so I loosened the 6mm bolts that held the front brake cable on the fork guard. So now that that's removed, pass to the other side. Now I like shipping my suspensions with the front fork guards on, so I leave those on because it protects the bottom of the shaft from getting scratched, dented, or destroyed from any shipping problems or anything like that. So I leave those on, very important. Now, the front forks come off really easily. All you gotta do is you gotta loosen the bolts on the triple clamps on each side. Don't even have to take them out. Loosen it. 4 on each side. So now, first front forks out. Now we can do the second one. Same procedure. Make sure you hold it while you're loosening the bolts, or else it will fall out to the ground, and you don't want that to happen. Now, once you get these back, you got to make sure that you retighten these same bolts on the triple clamps using a torque wrench, or else you will over torque them, and it will cause the bolt to strip on the inside. And then, so now we're going to take the rear suspension, load it back into the bin with the rest of the stuff. now we're done. My name is Michael Da Silva. This is how you took an engine, the front and rear suspension, out of the bike and getting it ready for the 2013 race season.